So welcome everyone to the Bipolar Buddies. Bipolar Buddies is a place where we have a free conversation about any topic related to bipolar. We can be among bipolars, we can also have people from the outside, but today I'm very glad to welcome someone who I consider as a friend, Oliver Seligman. Hello, Oliver.
Hello, Michelle.
Oliver is, oh yeah, Michel. I'm Michel Leroux. I always forget to introduce myself. Um, Oliver Seligman is someone I met like 3 years ago while presenting him in another context, and someone who is an author, someone who is a public speaker, someone who is also a monk, who tells us about this, and also someone who wrote an article about the power of love in mental health, which was for me like, yeah, finally someone addressed this topic. People tend to be a little bit intimidated about. But you know, I will start with asking Oliver to tell us a bit about his tumultuous journey, and then I think we will talk mostly about love. Oliver, it's
Sounds
yours.
good. Thanks, Michelle. Well, I was born in Inverness in Scotland and had a very happy childhood, as far as I can remember. And when I was 17, I had a big manic episode in my final year of school, and I ended up in a mental hospital in Edinburgh for a couple of months. And that kind of began my sort of my conscious journey with bipolar. Since then, I've been through quite an adventure that I imagine we'll talk about over the course of this
Yes.
hour or so. But basically, I've been well for the last 8 years. I'm happily married, have a wonderful wife. I live in Oslo, and I keep myself as busy as I can. I definitely have my limitations with side effects and the odd hint of bipolar here and there. But generally, I feel that I've found peace and a lot of contentment and happiness, even though the journey has been pretty rough at times, as I'm sure a lot of people listening to will be able to relate to.
Yes, and I would say that this book, Befriending Bipolar, Patient's Perspective, um, well, tells about your journey and about your learnings. And let's say, not, it starts with to my loving wife, loving mother. So the word love is very, very quickly present in your pages. Could you tell us, Oliver, at which stage, let's say this, let's say, uh, power of love, of empowerment through love, came into your journey? I think it was like 10 years ago, something.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about love because we all have different ideas of what love is, and some of them overlap and some of them don't. I think when I was young, the love I experienced the most was the love from my parents and also the sort of brotherly and sisterly love of my friends. And that kind of love was fantastic. It nourished me and made me laugh, made me smile, comforted me when I needed to be comforted, pushed me on when I needed to be pushed on. It definitely
Yeah.
wasn't always soft love. There was a lot of laughter, a lot of teasing, a lot of honesty.
Yes.
So that was the main kind of love I think that I recognized. But I also recognized a tremendous love for animals
Mm.
when I was growing up. I grew up with two wire-haired Dachshunds and two Black Labradors over the course of, I guess, almost my whole childhood.
Oh,
And that was incredible for me because the companionship I felt with them and the unconditional love that they gave me back was something that I hadn't experienced before. Because the amazing thing about a lot of animals is that even if I wasn't particularly nice to them or I was grumpy or I didn't give them their food on time, they would still shower me
yes.
with this love. And so that was another kind of love that I experienced.
Yeah.
Um, then as I sort of moved through life and went to boarding school and had my, my knocks and my hits from bipolar and
Mm.
and from lots of other experiences in life, I think I got better at hiding myself from love, kind of pushing love away. I wasn't as open to it, I think, as I had been. I still had a lot of laughter and a lot of fun, but that sort of underlying strength disappeared for a while as my mind got busier and busier. And then to jump ahead, after about 5 years of struggling with bipolar quite seriously,
Yes.
being in and out of mental hospitals and having been depressed on and off for, I think, about 4.5 years,
Yes.
and experienced various psychoses, I came to a place where I was finally stabilized on lithium,
Yes.
but on a lower dose than I'd actually been on for 20 years. So it was like a small success, as it
Mm.
were, because the side effects were a bit better than they had been. But I clearly need this medication to kind of
Mm-hmm.
keep me stable. And there was a time when I'd just gone back on it, and so I had a lot of the side effects. My mouth was very dry. I had a lot of headaches. I was exhausted all the time. My breath was smelly. I was a real mess, and I looked like a real mess. And there was one morning I woke up in bed, and I sort of crawled out of bed at probably about 11 o'clock in the morning. And my wife was sitting in the living room, and I started laughing. And she sort of stared and looked at me, really surprised, because
Mm-hmm.
there hadn't really been much laughter in the last few years, from me.
Mm.
Um, and she said, What's up? What's happening?" And I said to her, I've finally stabilized on lithium, and I've been ascending or meditating for many, many years. And the lithium has allowed that to kind of bring this peace to me
Mm.
that I haven't experienced for 5 years. And I realized in that moment that no matter what was happening in my body, no matter how ill I'd been or how ill I was, and I'd had cancer as well in that 4 years' time,
Yeah.
I realized that it wasn't nearly as important as me being at peace.
Mm.
And that kind of love might sound, to some people will really relate to that, particularly people who've had a serious illness and found peace with it and
Yeah.
managed to accept it. And others, it will sound very strange, perhaps even irresponsible. But it's interesting because since I've been an Ishaya monk, which I became in 2003,
Mm-hmm.
a huge part of my life has been dedicated to finding peace and happiness and joy and sharing that with others if they're interested.
Yes.
I'm not much of a what's it called? I can't remember the word. An evangelist these days,
Ah, yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
for people who are interested. Um, that's been a huge part of my life. And so to actually sort of find that peace, having been
Yeah.
through so much with bipolar, where for a lot of people with bipolar, if they just have a good week, that's a victory,
Mm.
or if their suffering isn't too bad for a period of time, that's a victory.
Yeah.
And I had found this peace and this happiness that just seemed so grounded.
Yeah.
It was amazing, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Pretty
know,
cool.
in what you say, it's. I think the a kind of a funny thing because you were laughing about it. You are saying that you were like loving your meds, loving your medication, being grateful to what it brought to you, and uh, in a way, all this came, I think, firstly through the acceptance you reached at a certain point with your bipolar journey, because uh, I understand that in your struggle, there were a lot of you were battling life, as you write in your book, until something changed and you accepted life, uh, not only through in the way you saw life before, which was I think it's an interesting point because we'll come to also the self-esteem. It was for you as a human being pretty much like all or nothing. Could you say something about it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't say that I love my medication. I think that would be going a bit far for
Yeah.
me. I would say that I'm a lot more accepting of the
Yes.
fact that I need to take it.
Yeah.
Um, and we're all different. Some people need more, some people need less, some people can get by without any. Um, but for me, it was more like I started to accept my situation. And I realized that most of us have been brought up to fight life and
Mm.
to change life almost constantly.
Yes.
Um, and so we think, well, I need to get a better job, or I need to get a better partner, or I need to have this experience. I need to go to Nepal. I need to make more money. I need to change the way I look. I need to be thinner. I need to be fatter. I need to change, 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 change.
Yes.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing in the world of change. There's
Mm.
nothing wrong with that at all. Someone wants to change their job, good luck to them. But it's really different when there's an internal acceptance of the way things are.
Yeah.
Because when we accept the way things are, it makes change easier, usually, and it also makes recognizing when it isn't wise to change easier. And so I started to kind of move out of this place of always wanting to make life better, always wanting to get rid of my side effects a bit more and a bit more and a bit more and a bit more, always wanting to be more successful, always wanting and wanting. And suddenly it became, this is okay.
Yeah.
This is okay exactly
Yeah.
the way it is. And
Yeah.
from that okayness, I became more patient, I became more loving, I became able to accept and receive love better.
Yes.
And nowadays, this is like 8 years later,
Yeah.
um, I would say that love is just a huge part of my life, and in many ways, the motivating entity behind a lot
Yes.
of my actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And could you say that this awareness, in a way, uh, it started with this encounter you had with this clinical psychologist, like also 10 years ago. And I'm referring to this article you published recently for the British Psychologist Society, if I say it right,
Yeah,
and
British Psychological
which is
Society. Yeah.
called The Power of Love in Mental Health. And then you describe this moment where you are sectioned, I think, when you meet this person, and only the way that she is in her attitude in an hospital context, she is like friendly and loving in a way. This seems to have changed. This was maybe one very important moment in the evolution. I find it very interesting that it happens in this context.
Yeah. I don't think that many people expect to find a lot of
No.
love in a sort of emergency clinic
Mm.
full of psychologists and psychiatrists. But I did.
You did.
Um, yeah, it was very cool. This lady Torna, who also sort of co-wrote the article with
Yes.
me,
Yeah.
um, she she was just friendly and kind. I could feel the kindness coming out of her. You know, when you meet people who are
Yeah.
warm and you just know, oh, this is going to work. I'd had a couple of psychologists before her and at least one psychiatrist before who, God bless them, they did their best, but they weren't as warm and kind. They weren't as advanced as she was socially, and they didn't have as much love that they could express. And so it was a very different experience. But when I started working with Torna, she was fun. We would laugh. We would talk about very deep things. She would sort of lead me into different ways of seeing situations so I could kind of learn things for myself. She wouldn't just tell me how it is or and perhaps one of the most important things that she did was she didn't get afraid from what I said. I'd had experiences with a lot of psychiatrists before who, if I talked about I don't like my meds or I want to lower my meds or I want to come off my meds, they would react with this visceral fear as if this was the worst thing I could ever do. And what's interesting is that when they did this, they didn't realize it, but they shut me down and they didn't allow me to talk about
Mm.
it and to just have a dialogue, perhaps over weeks, where we could go through it and figure something out.
Yes.
And perhaps I wouldn't lower my meds. Perhaps I would stay on my meds exactly as they were. But I needed, for many, many years, I needed to talk about this
Yes.
with professionals because my meds gave me so many
Yeah.
horrible side effects. So it wasn't as simple as take your meds and everything's fine. It
Yeah.
was take your meds and you're not going to have another episode and you can be able to find sort of peace and happiness, but you're going to have headaches 2 or 3 times a week. You won't be able to work. You will hardly be able to study. You won't remember being 100 meters
Mm.
away from your home. You won't
Yes.
remember where it is. You know, there were loads and loads of things, side effects. I had a lot of physical aching and pains, and I got very aggressive. I mean, there were lots of stuff happened.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, before Torna, I wasn't able to really discuss that with anyone because so many people have this idea that if you want to come off your meds, or even if you want to talk about come off your meds, you're foolish and
Mm.
you're already going down a very dangerous avenue. Whereas the way I see it is that if people are allowed to talk about their fears and talk about their worries, very often they don't need to take action.
Mm.
Very often they may well decide, well, actually, I think I'm going to stick with my meds, the way they are.
Yeah.
But to stop someone from having that sort of almost closure with themselves
Yeah.
is common and it's unwise, in my view.
Yeah. I think we are talking about something very important, which is um, this thin line between, and I'm staying in this, let's say, this hospital context, uh, when opening doors, being able to talk about things, only this, so not being only clinical, I would say, but being human and not too much into emotions and stuff, but just being human. It's also my experience that makes you more like you feel more like sharing, opening yourself, and at the end of the day, being empowered and making your own decisions, as you did, I understand, with lithium, with whom you have a love and hate relationship. Well, we don't love our meds, but for you it was on off until the day you accepted it with the side effects you were describing. That's very interesting. But you go so far that you would even advise the medical system to let's say take love, generally speaking, love in account, and even as being part of the process. So this goes far. So you are saying, which I also think, that it can be a kind of a mindset when you take care of patients.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I don't sort of feel to give like sort of advice to the medical system or whatever. But what I do sort of feel to do is um, to suggest to everyone listening that one of the most important things that I think we can do as a human being is increase our levels of love
Yeah.
and kindness and wisdom. And there are many different ways people do that. I've done that through the Ashire's Ascension meditation as taught
Mhm.
by the Bright Path. That's what I've been doing for the last 22 years, and I've been a teacher for 20 years. And
Yeah.
that's enabled me to tap into an experience of love within myself. And
Yeah.
then that over time starts to spread out into the world. And so I experience more love towards other people and situations. It doesn't make me fluffy. It doesn't
No.
mean I can't tell someone off or be very strong with someone. It's not like that. It's not about being sort of airy fairy and ungrounded. It's a very, very grounded, I would say, a kind of mature love.
Yeah.
Um, but really, I think as individuals, it's a good idea to kind of sit back sometimes and think, if I could have anything I wanted, if I had one wish, that's two wishes. If I had one wish,
Mhm.
what would I wish for? And for me, it was peace. And then my other one would have been joy and happiness,
Yeah.
stability. At times, also, more than anything, I wanted to be free of bipolar. But why would I have wanted to be free of bipolar? Well, so I could be happy, so I could be at peace. So really, my kind of highest desire was actually the peace, the happiness. Um, and it can be a very, very helpful thing to ask ourselves, because quite often people talk about this lack of purpose in their life. See, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my purpose is.
Mm-mm.
But often they haven't actually sat back and just thought, well, what do I really, really, really want? Not necessarily like I want a Ferrari or I want to go on holiday, not like that. But what kind of experience of life do I want? What is the most important thing for me inside? Um, and when I realized that, when I realized that I wanted peace, um, things started to happen and it started to be
Yeah.
supported. It was very, very magical and interesting.
Yes. I think this is maybe the most important thing we can share, because you also write in your book, and I totally relate to this, that you found peace and achievements in little things. You are describing the start of your day. You wake up, you are with your loving wife, you do little things, and you just enjoy life. I've got exactly, I reached this exact kind of routine, so to say, because it doesn't need, life doesn't need to be high-end, far-fetched, materialistic, successful, and so on. Okay, if people want to achieve themselves that way, but I think that we have in common is that there was one point, and I think it's also like doing this will increase your self-esteem, because you fulfill your moments, your days, and you don't need much more than this. And uh, I would say that bipolar, as you also wrote, you could swap bipolar against a normal life. Um, but at the same time, you have it, I have it, we have it, so we have to deal with it. So you make the best out of it, and we come back to this acceptance, and that's, I think, the moment where love comes in, the love for yourself, see yourself struggle, fight, and achieve a kind of balance. It's, yeah, it's I think the not even the destination, it's just the way you live the best.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for a simple and easy life.
Yeah.
And some people are ready for that and some aren't. And if someone isn't ready for it, then they shouldn't do it because
Yeah.
it'll feel weird and it won't be fun. But if someone has got to a place where they would like to do more of the things they enjoy, they would like to, yeah, simplify their life in certain ways, and they can do that, they have the resources to do that, then
Yeah.
good luck to you, is all I can say.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was very much, my life tended to become easier and more enjoyable the more peaceful I became, the more I sort of meditated and looked after myself and did all the things that we have to do as people with bipolar. But it was just kind of, it was just very, very obvious to me that before, in my early 20s, I just wanted. I wanted to impress people. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be sexy. I wanted to have so much stuff, probably because I thought it would make me happy. And it certainly gave me moments of enjoyment, definitely. Traveling around the world, going and doing different things, getting a job as a trader in an investment bank that was very prestigious and exciting. I kind of fed off that and I enjoyed it, but it was also very temporary
Yes.
and it was also quite hollow.
Yes.
And once I started to find more contentment inside myself, it was like things that I hadn't particularly enjoyed before became more enjoyable. So now, like, I enjoy doing the washing up. I mean, how weird is that? I enjoy getting up in the morning. I love getting up in the morning, sitting and just having a coffee with my wife. I
Yes.
just really enjoy it.
Yes.
Whereas before, the old me would have just rushed it and got out the door and or been thinking about other
Yeah.
stuff whilst I was drinking and not at all present.
Mm-mm-mm.
Um, so I guess becoming more present, which comes with the love and the peace, because we become more involved in what's right here, right now.
Exactly.
That's been a tremendous
Yeah.
help for me. Mm.
And what would you say about, because you know psychosis, as I do, and I don't know if how far you got mystical in these phases. Um, what I know is very often you experience a kind of something you think it's like love, because you have to convey a message, you are like a prophetic and so on. So this is a kind of, at least it's a love sensation which most of the time we are not able to understand and to master really. And then you said something that you evolved to what you name like a grounded love. Uh, can you tell a bit about your spiritual evolution, um, please?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question, Michelle. Um, I thought that I first experienced love when I was at university, and I fell in love. And I fell in love with this lovely girl called Sarah, and I had a great time with her. And I was absolutely besotted by her. And I had so many intense feelings of love. It was like I hadn't really felt anything for a few years because I was taking quite a lot of medication, but this love was so strong that I could feel it through the medication. And it was just like, wow. And once that relationship was over, because we weren't remotely suited, we were thrown together at university, it was like that finished. Then I got my heart completely broken and I was devastated for
Mm,
weeks. I was an absolute disaster, you know.
mm,
Um, Now, when I look back on that episode, I wasn't in love. I had a lot of very strong feelings. There was a lot of obsession in me. I thought about her the whole time. If she wasn't there, I would be thinking about her. And if she said something nice, it would light up my day. And if she criticized me, it would ruin my day. That's not love,
mm.
that's obsession. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, loads of us have been through that experience of being madly in love. You know, what a great
Yes.
way to call it. But what I found over the years, and I guess, you know, growing up and having different experiences and expanding my love, what I found that there are different types of love, and one can sort of put them in boxes. But what I would say is kind of the purest love for me is it's a state of being.
Yes.
It's living in a loving way.
Yes.
Um, we've never actually met in person, Michelle. We've talked a lot on the phone and we've
We have
helped each
to.
other out, and I definitely consider you a friend.
Yeah.
But I know enough about you to know that you live in a state of love,
Yeah.
and a tremendous amount of your motivation for doing things is love.
Yes.
And I would imagine, I don't know this, but I would imagine a lot of the people around you appreciate how loving you are, and you tend to attract good things to you and all that stuff. Would that be fair?
Mm.
Yeah, cool.
That's yeah.
Yeah, you go.
No, thank you for saying this. Um, I think I totally agree with you. It's a way of being. It's not which can be a way of acting, but then your actions are fueled with love. Um, and I also think that it's like sharing what you described in the first place was obsession, passion, so on, which are also very strong things. But I think that love is kind of the ultimate fuel to everything in life, and because it also brings you, let's say, um, it makes like pretty fluid. It's also, let's say, um, it's the best way also to fight anxiety, because then if you fall in love with life, you are confident into life, even though you cannot pretend you master everything. Unfortunately, you don't. Um, you give you into life, and that's a phrase you wrote, by the way, and that's something which it takes time maybe to achieve. You can be as a child very loving, and then there is what you described, all the patterns, all the motivations, all the things you think you need to do to be a man, a human being, and then you have to dislearn it. And I think the great thing about bipolar, to go back to it, is that it puts you in such situations and states of consciousness and so on, that when you come back from it, then you value life, you value love, but love doesn't need to be far-fetched. As you say yourself, it's just in these little things, and don't I don't expect much. I just just fuel my life with this. That's just, yeah, a way of being, as you said. So and I think we share this. One thing I wanted to uh, also to talk about, because we talk about what we feel, but the love of the people around who I know have contributed a lot for your well-being as well as for my well-being. Can you tell a word about this? This, let's say, the love you got from your wife and the people around?
Yeah. I'm eternally grateful to the people who showed me kindness over the years
Yes.
particularly when I was ill, but also just in general.
Mm.
I remember my first experience in a mental hospital in Edinburgh. I went into a ward and I was 17 years old. My voice was just breaking. I was tiny. I think I was about 5'5", 5'6", and
Oh.
probably about probably about 55, 60 kilos. I mean, I was a very
Mm.
small guy, not even close to fully grown. And I walked into this ward with 30 people, a lot of people with drug addictions, a lot of alcoholics, a lot of people who looked really scary. A lot of them had been living on the street. And it was terrifying. And this was my first experience of going into a safe place, because for weeks, all I'd wanted was to go into a safe place, into hospital, and just sleep. And then I thought I'd be okay. And I was presented with this ward, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't, oh my God, you know.
Yeah.
And fortunately, because my mum is incredibly loving and incredibly brave, she put her foot down. And this was 30 years ago, 35 years ago
Yeah.
almost, I think. And and she said, absolutely not. He is not staying here. And they said, well, he has to stay here because we'll section him, we'll force him because he's so ill, he has to stay in hospital. And so she said, no, we need to have a meeting. And we had a meeting with a psychiatrist, and he realized he was contending with the wrong mum. And she was very calm and very straightforward, but she's a very bright woman.
Yeah.
And she just said, this can't happen, blah, blah, blah. And he asked me lots of questions, was I going to kill myself, all these kind of things. And I said, no, I wasn't, et cetera, et cetera. I was in a complete psychosis at the time. I thought I'd been arrested and was going to prison.
Mm.
But luckily, he let me go back with my mum, and he said, okay, we'll try and find you a place in a quieter ward. And by the grace of love, I actually got a bed in a very quiet sort of mother and baby unit where they have 8 beds and I think 2 or 3 staff on, and it was a completely different experience. So in that respect, I've been a lot luckier than a lot of people with
Yeah.
bipolar.
Yeah.
But within that ward, most people hated being in that ward because it was still a mental hospital. There was still a lot of screaming. It was right next door to the other ward, so there was
Yeah.
still contact with those people. And but I really enjoyed it. I think partly because I'd been to boarding school, so I'd
Mm.
been kind of prepared for it. I was quite institutionalized, and but mainly because the staff were so kind to me, and they took time and they chatted to me, and I gave them quite a lot of love. Once I was out of the depression, I went
Yeah.
into a deep depression, and in a deep depression, there's no way I could give anyone anything. I'm
Mm.
just in hell. But as I started to get better, I started to have a bit of fun with them and chat, and I experienced so much love. It gave me a tremendous I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
It gave me a tremendous faith in
Yes.
humanity,
Yes.
and it also inspired me to try to help other people when I could.
Yes.
Um, and so that was like one part of bipolar and love that I'm very grateful for. At the same time, my parents were coming in and visiting me every day, and they came in separately, so I'd get more visitors. And they were both really busy, and they had 2 other kids and lots of stuff going on, but they still came in,
Mm.
and that kept me going. That love was enormous. And then I met um, my first psychiatrist, a guy called Dr. Robert Raitt, who
Yes.
was luckily, again, he was a very, very good psychiatrist, and he showed me so much love and kindness and wisdom, and he really kind of set me on my way. And there's so many other people, who've shown me love, like Torna, and a lot of my friends and family, and um, thank goodness, because I couldn't have done it without them. I
No.
couldn't have done it without love.
Can you say a word about your wife? Because you
Oh,
were
yeah.
talking about the deep well of love that she had to possess to be able to to hold you. Can you say something?
Yeah. Well, I've been incredibly blessed with my wife. she's seriously loving and seriously wise, and we have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot together. We joke a lot together. I think it's interesting because our love actually has grown together, because I think when we got together, which was about 18 years ago now,
Hmm.
we got together, and we both we wanted to love each other. We wanted to be nice to each other and, do all that stuff. But we had pretty big egos.
Yes.
We had pretty big ideas about how things should be and what was right and what was wrong, and, lots of stuff going on. I think it would be fair to say that we were both drama queens. So when we met, and we had a very passionate
Yeah.
relationship for a long time, which was terrific and fun, and sort of plenty of that sort of obsession that I talked about earlier, being really in love. But then also the flip side of that was our egos started to clash, and we had a lot of challenges, a lot of fights. We kind of wanted to make it work, but it just didn't, and it didn't, and it didn't. And after about a year, we split up, and we didn't want to split up, but we just couldn't make it work. It's like we were too in our heads to make it
Yes.
work, and too in our sort of our own different ways of being.
Mm.
And so we split up, and both of us were absolutely devastated. Like, we had no idea we would be so unhappy when we split up, because
Mm.
we'd had a tough time together. And it was almost like that challenge. It was almost like one of those moments in life where the penny drops, and
Yes.
suddenly we grow up 5 years in the space of a second. It's so strange. I'm sure a lot of people have had that
Yeah.
experience. And it was like, oh my God, I have to actually grow up if I'm going to make this relationship work.
Yes.
I have to stop being an idiot.
Yeah.
This is what I was thinking to myself. I have to tell her that, and I
Yes.
have to apologize for all the stuff I've done, and tell her I really want to make it work, and we need to get help, and, just be a grown up about it.
Yeah.
The cool thing was that she felt the same way,
Mm.
and so we gave it another go, and it wasn't all roses immediately, but over time it just got more and more rich and enjoyable and fun, and now, I mean, she's my best friend, and my amazing wife, and my lover, and my confidant, and someone who really wants the best for me, and I really want the best for her. And a huge part of her love has that she's shown me has been when I'm ill,
Mm.
because it's not a lot of fun to be around a depressed person or a
Mm.
person who's mentally ill. It's hard for a lot of people to do that, and so to have the courage to stick with them and to help them and to keep loving them,
Yes.
I have immense respect for that. I have
Yes.
I have immense respect for all carers and family members and
Yeah.
friends who stand by someone who has a mental illness, because a lot of people just disappeared when I got
Yes.
ill. A lot of
Yeah.
people who I thought wouldn't disappear, they just vanished. And and that was a shock.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. You could say that bipolar works two ways. It selects the true friendship, and it's emphasize the size of the love that someone can feel for you. Um, and I would say the same about my wife. You know, I'm a little bit older than you are. Well, much older than you are.
much older, much.
Much older, much older.
Just
Sorry,
joking.
sorry. Uh, we have to talk about humor as well, but later. I wanted first to say that that well, I'm with my wife since 38 years. We divorced and remarried through bipolar and so on. But it's exactly what you said. I think you also work on love. It's not a given and that's enough, and I love you and that's enough. It's something. It's growing toward each other, which means uh, mutual acceptance and but a common vision. But because this podcast goes over the power of love, I just want to say to my wife that I love her, and I'm very grateful for what just she did, she endured, and what we became now with a common vision and a beautiful life, and so on. And of course, I know that maybe you and I were very lucky to have met this person, but it was not like also easy. You had to work on it. So I would say to on this point to the people who maybe lack this kind of love now, it's you should always try to expand your let's say your support system, which is a very clinical word, uh, but fuel it with love and friendship and go for it, being just open for it and instinctive and so on, because it's there. It's not that it's forbidden whatsoever. So but it's very powerful, because I think in the end the love you get from your wife, it's it allows you to have your wife not like a compromise, but like an accomplishment, as we described it, huh? In little things, in little pleasures, in in sometimes lowering your expectations and seeing that, oh, I'm happy, I don't need to change the world, and you change it, the world, but in another way, I'm sure, but it's fueled by love. So
Yeah, I agree.
yes.
Yeah. You look very good for your age, Michelle. You look very handsome.
Well, I edit this podcast, so this will be cut
And with your
or not, maybe
Your
not,
French
because
with your French accent, mate, you're doing well.
thank you. By the way, um, let's talk about the I would describe it as the hard love you express with yourself when you do ice bathing, for instance.
Yeah.
Could you could you tell us about, because I know, because I love sport and so on. I know, but tell about what you inflict yourself to to be well.
Well, in Norway, there's a lot of people nowadays they ice bathe. A lot of people have sort of followed the Wim Hof method.
Yeah,
But my wife and
yeah,
I, we're very sort of proud of the fact that we started ice bathing before it became popular. And so we really didn't know what we were doing. And so what we did with a great friend of ours called Elizabeth was we just made sure that the fire was stoked in the house we were living in, or in Norway you call it a hut.
yeah,
And then we would just go out in the snow, walk through the snow, and walk to this sort of pier,
yeah.
and either jump in or go down gently into the water and swim around a bit. And I think our record was we did it. It was minus 11 degrees,
Oh my God.
which is very cold, and the water was actually less than freezing because it was salt water
Yeah,
in the sea. Um, but basically, we did it first of all because we thought it would be fun. We thought it'd be an adventure. Didn't
yeah,
really think about any health benefits. They came later when it became more
mm,
commonplace. But when we started, it's like, oh, let's do it. It'll be fun. Let's see what it's like, And then you run back to the house and you warm up in a shower, or if you're lucky, there's a sauna. There's a lot of saunas in Norway.
yes,
Or you just sit in front of the fire with hot chocolate or whatever it is.
yeah,
Um, but to be honest, that's very much mine and my wife's kind of approach to life, is
mm,
to try and make life an adventure.
yes,
And quite amusingly, even sometimes when we go for a coffee, it's kind of like an adventure for us. We're like, well, where will we go? Well, and we can try that place, and it's kind of, we have kind of an enthusiasm for things that we didn't have before.
yeah,
And so ice bathing is really obviously an adventure. It's hardcore and it's
yeah,
fun. It's had very positive effects on it makes me calmer, but it also makes me more alive. It's an
yeah,
interesting experience that I'm sure a lot of people who've done it
yeah,
can relate. But also we these days we bring that kind of attitude into most things. Like I ride a motorbike.
mm,
I just have a Suzuki Bandit 600. It's
mm,
like I think it's a 1999 model, so it's not an expensive bike or
mm,
anything, but it's really easy to ride and it's fun and it makes a great noise. It's got great
yeah,
exhaust.
yeah.
For any old people listening, it's not too loud, don't worry, but it makes a lovely purr. And so in the summer in Norway, that we take the bike out and we just go on adventures, and we go to different towns and we go to different coffee shops, and we go out to the beach and swim sometimes. Um my wife is I think she's mid 50s, and I'm almost 50.
Mm,
And we we look like we look almost like we're teenagers sometimes.
Yeah.
We're just back of the bike, just bombing off somewhere, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of sort of there's a lot of love in being young.
Yes.
And I
But
know
that's
you
that's
know a lot about this because you have the same attitude.
yeah. But I'm let's say that in what you say, the very important thing is if you are in love with life and like unconditionally and unconditionally, this I won't cut because it's just proof I'm French.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. uh, like a Labrador, black Labrador. I happen to have a black Labrador myself. She's 3 years old, but she's my shadow, and she's loving, and I try to be like what she's to me, to us. I try to be towards life, and then what you mentioned, riding a bike, taking a cold shower. Every day I start with a cold shower, and I couldn't start the day without a cold shower because it's a ritual. So it's not like it's compulsory or like you have to exercise to just walk, bike, run, spread your spirits. Nature is very important because nature is also unconditional. I said it, love. If you are open to it, if it's not only seeing green, and if you just are interacting to it, and that's what love is. And I think that everything you do with this mindset, it's well mind, it's with everything,
Mhm.
will just be fluid. There is no decision not guided by love which would be a bad decision. Well, maybe I'm mistaken, but anyway, you make your life flow much better than if, as you also said in the beginning, you fight, you resist it, and so on. Because I think life is also the best coach there is. So when she gives you these nasty signals, you should be open to it, and when you see that you embrace it, then everything goes well. Up to these pleasures we are talking about, because this routine of a bipolar, from sleeping to exercising to eating, everything can be a pleasure when love is embedded in the moment.
Mm.
I'm totally convinced about this.
Yeah.
And if it works small scale, it can work big scale, but you cannot act directly on the big scale, so you do it on your scale, and maybe the butterfly effect comes.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting with bipolar because the way I sort of see bipolar, or I guess, or really any mental illnesses, there's kind of different, there's almost like different instructions depending on whether one is ill or whether one is stable.
Yeah.
And obviously what we're talking about and have been talking about for the last 45 minutes or so is very much directed to people who have managed to find that stability.
Yes.
Um, there's no, if I'm depressed, I can't even go ice bathing.
No.
I can't have fun with my wife. I can't ride my motorbike. It's a different world. It's a world where I need professional help and all
Yeah.
that. But then when we're stable and it's almost like that's when we land, and that's when we get to really decide more about our life and our approach.
Yeah.
And everything you've said about your love and like making decisions from love and having love as a high priority and stuff, it does have a butterfly effect. There's no doubt in my mind that what's going on in here
Yeah.
very much affects the world around me. Very, very
Totally.
much. If I'm depressed, I am unluckier. I hit my head on things more. I tend to um, miss buses. I tend to see the bad things in life rather than the good things. It's almost like life is conspiring against me when I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
depressed. What it's like. And then when I'm well and I'm happy and at peace, I'm luckier and things work, things flow more and
Yeah.
everything. And that's, I think that for me, that's kind of where the ascension or the meditation fits in for me, because I've been able to use that primarily when I'm well. When I've been very ill, it hasn't made any difference. I've needed extra help, but
Yeah.
when I've been well, it's allowed me to kind of find more peace from the thoughts and the stresses and the worries in my head. And as I find more peace, suddenly life becomes more peaceful and enjoyable. And like you said, there's
Yeah,
more love.
you
But
could
when I'm
say,
thinking about things and grinding,
yeah.
I don't I don't see any love really.
And I think the mistake is to keep on struggling with this, bad vibes and signals, uh, instead of, okay, just face it and try to go back to the right phase, frequency, how you call it, with life, and then everything will be pretty simple. And what I also think is that, because we talked about, let's say, love as a fuel, the love we got from people, the love we let's say, achieved in ourselves. It's not power of love, a force from above, but it's also an inner force, huh, as you write it. Also, you have to look for it inside yourself. And then I think the full circle happens when you share this with others, because you were saying that when you are depressed and so on, you are not, instead of expressing much love, but at least if there is this love around, it's one thing. And maybe this love can come from fellow bipolar, for instance. And I know that you follow also a master in psychology and mental health, and you are also a coach, as I am. Maybe we can say a word about, what we can provide to our fellow bipolar through love.
Yeah, sounds cool. Um, well, what I really hope to provide is inspiration and hope to
Yeah,
people. And by sharing what has helped me and what hasn't helped me, it gives people the opportunity to pick and choose what they want to focus on or experiment on. I think that my primary gift is the stillness within, that sort of the peace that I have, because when I coach and when I live, I come from that place of peace. So I don't really think about things and plan things, and I don't have a strategy for
yeah,
myself or for anyone else. I just live in the moment and allow that to speak, and that is often a very helpful place to speak from,
yes,
um, because it's a way of tapping into what I would call sort of divine wisdom
mm,
or deep wisdom
yes,
that is beyond knowledge.
yes.
It's even beyond life experience. It's a state of wisdom. Yeah, so
Yeah, this
I
is
do.
very true what you say. I'm coaching slash buddying, since 3 years, and I see real um, progresses while coaching, when it comes to awareness, helping someone to get awareness, to be more into the posture in life, or the goals and the recognition of your qualities and so on. Also in taking actions. Um, but I think the most beautiful feedback I can get is when the people I coach, they just feel also that I really care for them. Really, we are together in this. We go towards, this getting out depression, or trying to settle a first stage of balance and so on. But I'm with you. I care, and I even think that the energy you convey is very, very important. The way you listen, uh, and then actually I'm loving my bipolar, in the way that my experience helps me to help others in a way, yeah, which is pretty unique, and it is what it is. And you could say that bipolar is an invited thing in your life, but then use it in this way, you give back, and then you can talk about an accomplishing journey in your life. So that's very close to what you just said about your way of supporting or coaching. And I think it's very important that more and more people realize the power they can have through their own experiences and so on, and help, and this comes back. That's vision of life. You give, you don't expect immediately a return on investments. You just give, and it will come back. That I'm totally convinced about it, and yeah, that's something I think we really share deeply. This vision of being.
That's very cool. Very cool.
So I think because we could talk about many more things, of course, and I would love, by the way, maybe to address bipolar through other angles. Maybe humor would be the last thing we 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 talk about in this podcast for today. Um, would you say that Scottish humor is better than French humor?
Oh, infinitely
God,
better.
I was sure you would
Yeah,
say this.
absolutely.
Oh,
Uh,
you
no,
get me
I mean,
depressed, Oliver.
yeah, for me, humor is massively important,
Yeah.
and I have a I use humor all the time in life. Humor
Yeah.
is so important to me. Teasing people, having fun with people, making silly jokes. It's just it's a huge part of my life. I think it's a great way to bond with people. Humor's a great way to tell people awkward things as well. You
Yeah.
know, if we tease the ones we love, you know, and it's a way of communicating and getting things off our chest
Yeah.
without being mean, you know.
No.
Um, I've seen a huge assault on humor in social media and in the media from political correctness, and
Yeah.
humor's going to win. Humor's going to win because humor is based on love. It's based on
Exactly.
pure love, laughter, love, bringing joy,
Yeah.
making people smile. And political correctness is based on a false
Fear.
belief that we need to make people victims, and that if we talk about people in a certain way and don't joke about things, then
Yeah.
somehow it's going to make it better. And anyone with bipolar knows that's not true.
No.
People who have genuinely suffered know that humor is vital,
Oh.
and laughing at ourselves is vital as well. And that attempts to stop people using humor, they're not going to win. They're useless and they're boring. And
Yeah.
I look forward to the day when political correctness becomes, rather than focusing on that, one focuses on just being kind in action and thought, and not worrying about hurting people's feelings too much, you know.
I think you kill the stigma when you are able to joke with bipolar, among bipolar, about your condition.
Yeah.
Because it's just about the intention. If it's a loving one, and if the joke is good, because it's also important.
Yeah.
I understood that French jokes were not that funny, but okay, it's fair enough. But
I
I
have
think
to
it's
I have to be honest that I have met a lot of funny French people.
thank you
But
so much.
but given the chance to take the mickey out of French people, obviously I had to take it.
Yeah, but I think it would be safer for me to welcome you where I live in Portugal than to do ice bathing in Norway, because maybe I don't come back and I won't be able to tell any joke by -11. So uh, I invite you in my quinta to have good jokes around the fire, deep conversations, to being as light or as serious as we want. But humor is a major thing to
Yeah.
me as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well,
Okay,
thanks very much. Thank you.
so let's wrap it, and thank you so much, Oliver, to be just who you are and be a friend, and yes, and thank you for the people who listen to us, and well, see you for the next edition of Bipolar Buddies. There will be links at the end of the podcast, the links you think are important to be mentioned. So voila, I will edit it first. Okay, thank you, Oliver.
Thanks a
Bye.
million, Michelle. Bye.
Bye.